Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show and everyone else between as well. My name is Alex and this is our wargame showing you how to paint a Liege-Kavalos in less than an hour and 15 minutes. This video has been sped up to 500%, so you're seeing me painting this at a 500% rate. That means 5 times the actual speed that I was moving as of recording it. There will be a few angles that aren't perfect, and if that takes you off, you might as well leave right now. But if it doesn't, feel free to sit here, enjoy the show, and listen to me talk about the painting. Starting off with this color scheme, I'm using Terraddon Turquiose from the Citadel Contast paint line and using an Army Painter Regiment brush to apply it. This color is used to paint the armor and any metallic parts as I am interpreting the special type of metal from Turquiose as this grim, dark green that you can see unfold before you here, and that's of course because this Turquiose is the realm of death, and I want my army to really represent what it means to be a legion of those who are gone, risen to protect all of our afterlives, which we of course know is what the army of Nagash is all about, protecting us in our afterlives. So really, if you think about it, we're the good guys. As you can see, I'm applying it to the plates of the horses as well. And I'm trying my very best to not hit anything, but this was a speed painting challenge, and so I could really feel that stress build up as I started to paint it. I also went for the shoes of the horse, granting them that Terraddon Turquiose, mostly just to like break apart the colors, so it wouldn't get too monotone to look at. Like you want your army to both be easy to look at for your eyes. You don't want them to like sparkle or hurt the eyes as you view them, or at least I don't. that could be your thing. I don't want my army to do that. So, but I still want you to be able to tell when there's a difference in color layers, and so I try to break apart each piece, trying to not have the same pieces too close to each other, have the same color, just to like break apart that difference and really help you center on which parts of the model contain what. So if you have an armored model, I'll paint all of the armor in the same color. Most likely, if that armor has trims, I'll use one color for that in its entirety. Here I'm showing off the finishing product of the Terraddon Turquiose as we move on to Skeleton Hordes, I believe. Yes, Skeleton Hordes, which we use. No, of course not Skeleton Hordes, that's the next step. I'm very sorry for that. We are still applying Terraddon Turquiose, but now we're using a fine detail brush, of course, to clear up the helmet. I was considering doing this with the Regiment brush, but what's the problem there? Is that I might end up actually hurting the model more than I help it by hitting a wrong part. Now we're going to the Skeleton Hordes from the Citadel Contast paint range, which is for anything bony on this model. For the Ossiarch Bonereapers, that's a lot of the details. As you can see, I'm both doing it on the insignia. I am applying it to the entirety of the horse-ish thingy. I actually think that might be a horse boar or something like that he's riding. I'm applying it to the trim of his armor because that's what's going to keep this model together. The center of this model is that it is an undead construct built from bones, and so I want the majority of the model to be that bone, to have that bony texture, to like unify all of the pieces. Even the pieces right now that I'm going to be painting purple later on for the gemstones in the insignia, because purple is the insignia that I'm using for my Nagash army. If you have viewed my skeletons on Instagram, you can probably tell, as the banner there is also in purple. But I'm using it for my insignias and such here. But in order to apply the contrast paints fully to the trim of those insignias, I'm using the Regiment brush still, and then applying that Skeleton Hordes all over the insignia, because the purple can cover that quite efficiently without much trouble. As you can see, the model is already starting to look quite nice. The thing about Citadel contrast paints that really makes sense is that if you make sure to draw it, like don't let it pool, don't let it sit and wait, but make sure you draw it as you paint with your brush, making sure to spread it across all surfaces, then it's going to start to look nice quite swiftly. And so for speed painters, I think that Citadel contrast, once you really got into it, is a good way to really get good results quite swiftly. So, continuing with the Skeleton Hordes, this is the right time to tell you all that this is my first time trying to edit this in with background music and with a few more cuts and the speeding up. So if there are any of these technical choices that I've made that you would like to give some feedback on, make sure you leave it down in the comments so I'll know what to edit later on. I'd also very much appreciate any subscriptions that are applied to my channel. After all, we're just starting up, and I'm saying my channel, but the goal for this channel is that it's actually not supposed to be just mine. I want this to be a community of people who are near Scandinavia, or people I meet as I intend to go traveling to play as well after Corona. So we'll see if that can be a thing that's actually going to happen. There we go, the model is coming along quite nicely. See here that the tail is almost finishing cleaning up. And as that cleans up, I can tell you that all of my new sound effects and music effects are coming from bensound. I believe it's .com or it's .org. Link to that will be in the description down below, so don't fret if you want to go have a look at it. And this one is called Punky. I found it on the rock section and really just enjoyed it. It made me sort of want to dance, and so I thought it would be nice for setting a proper mood. I'm now cleaning up the Skeleton Hordes, making sure that all of the crevices are really covered. I always save this until the last bit of applying a color, so that I can make sure I've covered as many surfaces as I am possibly capable of at that stage. Here we go with the Alien Purple from the Army Painters range. I use this for all of my purples. I thin it down quite a bit because I would rather apply 2 or 3 layers of it to really get this nice, smooth, cloth-y texture, even as I'm trying to speed paint, than one texture that is clogged and doesn't really fit well with the style of the model. Like a clogged paint is one of the worst things. Luckily for me here, I hit that sweet spot with the water in the first try. It takes a few tries. Earlier today, after painting this and now painting another, I thinned it down too much and had to apply 2 or 3 layers to the model I was painting. So it's really about finding the sweet spot for water to paint rate, making sure you get that just right. You can now see the purple being applied to the insignia on the shield, the horse, the cloak, and all the cloth. And that once again brings together the army. Is this, for me, these dark colors. As a kid playing Magic the Gathering, I had a friend who always used purple sleeves for his zombies, and so I've always linked the color of purple to the undead. Now we're using, I believe, the Sigmar brown or Wildwood brown from the Citadel contrast range, and I'm using this for the hoofs. Oh no, it's snakebite leather. I'm applying it to the hoofs, and I'm also applying it to the reins. Now it's time for my favorite tool, still noob enough, to do a full-on wash. This is a wash using the Strong Tone from the Army Painter. What this does for me is, as I've also told you about in a previous video, it really unifies these earthen shades of color. So I wouldn't use this on something that I didn't want to either have a very metallic look or a very earthen look. Like metallic look, if you're applying it to metallic paints, then you'll get this rustic sort of sense, as you might have seen in my video with painting the Adeptus Custodes versus Praetor. With this one, it applies sort of this feel of earthen, of dust, and that's what we're going for here. We are dealing with risen dead, and so I feel like this tone is quite good for this situation. It also, if your model has the same sort of shades all over it, like if the shades are all the same-ish color, then you're going to feel a more wholeness to the model you're painting. You're going to feel like everything is in the place that it belongs to. As you can see here, these brownish stains are actually quite well looking for the model, even though they're sort of clogging a bit up. And that's okay, because you can fix that later on when you go to the highlighting. So you can leave a few pools around here, just make sure they don't dry out into these small little circles, because what happens then is that it can actually ruin the paint down below for you, letting the white of your primer shine through. And that's going to set you back quite a few steps, because you will have to redo that entire piece of the model. So if that would have happened to the cloak, I would have to redo that cloak. Otherwise, the colors, as I reapplied them, would break and not be in the same tones. And if they're not in the same tones, then they don't look quite right, I think. Yeah. So we're moving on with the application of strong tone. So I might as well tell you a bit about what's coming up for the challenge as I rush over this model. On this channel in the future, you are going to find Age of Sigmar battle reports, as well as the first one is being recorded on Saturday the 8th of May 2021. That's 2 days from now. That's at the time of this recording. You'll also still continue to find these painting videos, but in which I'm going to start talking about other things than painting as well, and have this sped up version of me painting going along, because I feel like I want to get a few more things out there than simply commenting on how I paint things. And so I feel this is the right way to do it. So for this bad rep that's coming up, we're going to have the Ossiarch Bonereapers versus Bellacore, and so I've been in a very big hurry to paint up all of these. This is also why I did this as a speed paint, because I had to paint up 1,250 points of Bonereapers before Saturday, so I've been in quite the rush. Here you can see the tone is starting to set in, and while it sets in, we're going to move on to doing the base. I use Gryph Charger Grey for the little ornamental thingy. Anything stone, really, Gryph Charger Grey does a marvelous, and that's this little contrast painter, of course, does a marvelous job of anything that you want to look like this worn down whitish thing, like a marble, but not like it's been worn. So it does that quite well. My favorite sort of ground is either the Armageddon Dust range, which is this bright brown, or as I'm applying here, the Stirland Battlemire, which also ends up looking quite nice. It has this muddy texture to it, and it goes really well with either snow toppings, grass toppings, wild undergrowth, some rocks and some pebbles, and that really adds a lot of this fantasy feel to the miniature. When I paint mine, I don't like to have. I like the base to be in tone with the rest of the miniature, and so I go for maybe battlegrounds. I recently got a Chaos Sorcerer for Warhammer 40,000 that I will be painting on this channel at some point, from a good friend of mine, and I applied an extra Space Marine I had to the base just to keep in touch with it. I don't own many Age of Sigmar figures yet, but when I get a few more, I might start using their parts on one another just to show off how well they can interact. Right, it's time for one of the final steps of painting this model. This is the dry brushing step. Like when you're speed painting, when you want to get things done quickly, you will not have time to sit down and do a proper edge highlight. It's just not going to happen. I had to paint 30 miniatures and about 20 pieces of terrain in a week. And so sitting down doing edge highlights on each and every one of them just isn't going to work. Dry brushing technique is where you take the paint you're using. In this case, I'm using the layer Ushabti bone, which I've worn down with water. Then you take a dry brush and you get all that delicious paint in there. You make sure that it's really good and thick and sticking to the brushes. Then you wipe off as much as you possibly can on a piece of paper towel, as I have lying right there beneath, until you get very, very little off when testing it. You just want a bit of a smear. Then you run that brush, as I'm doing here, all over the pencil. Don't be too careful, because a bit of smear, that's actually just good. That just makes the light seem kind of more focused, and you get it going, because what happens then is that the paint will now only be remaining at the lower levels of the brush, and that will apply it to the surface areas without hitting the areas beneath, creating sort of highlights. Like, these aren't of course as perfect as a professional who are doing edge highlights, but this is a good way for family guys like me. Like, I had 2 daughters and a wife, and I had a job. This is a good way for people like me to produce a miniature that still looks pretty damn cool. Here I'm coming back to clean up the purple, just to make sure that the purple is still shining through after the dry brush, because I got a bit of smear on those insignia and on the cloak, and so I'm just like cleaning it up to still keep that depth of purple. Finishing up now, we're going to be applying alien blue thinned down into a very thin glaze. That's when the paint is like nearly watery. And I'm going to be painting all of the runes on the model with this blue. Duly note that after this video I might have decided, post painting my bone tithe construction, that I will be doing bright green runes, so I might go back and change up the runes on these, but the bright blue ones do look quite nice. I'm also using these colors for the eyes, this blue color for the eyes, because I really like that feel in Game of Thrones of the blue eyes. Like, yeah, I said something nice about Game of Thrones. Anywho, that's the finished miniature and how I did a speed painting of it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to throw a like and subscribe down below. For channels like mine, if you want to check out something like this, you can go to Tabletop Warbands. They are 2 Italian guys who are doing quite marvelous work with Kill Team and 40k. And if you're Scandinavian or don't mind watching anything in Danish, you can go over to Jesper at Skudlinjen, who is going to be visiting us at some point. Links to both of their channels down in the comments below. My name is Alex, and this was an Our Wargame painting session. Thanks for watching.